The story begins in Isgard, where civilians cheer and call out to the hero in the parade. At the same time, two siblings run to catch a glimpse of the parade. "Brother! Slow down!" the sister calls out, but her brother urges her to hurry as the parade is about to end. Along the way, they spot a man walking in the opposite direction. The sister thinks of directing him towards the parade, but her brother stops her because the man is a dark mage, and in Isgard, dark mages are shunned as cursed. In the next scene, we see a saint watching Isgard through her window. Soon, the dark mage arrives to see her. She thanks him and wants to reward him for eliminating the last threat to Isgard, calling him by the name Minold. But he refuses any reward except for what had been promised to him to be sent back to his original world. His real name is Kim Min-jun, and he dislikes the saint for assigning him the job of a despised dark mage. Despite his foul-mouthed behavior, Kim has worked hard for the empire behind closed doors. The saint is immensely grateful for his contributions and asks him if he truly wishes to return to his original world. Kim replies with a firm yes. He wants to go back to his original world. He doesn't want to stay here anymore because everyone is using him. However, the saint doesn't want him to go. She implores him to stay for the sake of the empire, promising to reward him for the ill treatment he has received thus far. After hearing the saint's request, Kim asked what she would give him in return. The saint said she would give him whatever he desired, but when Kim requested things from his original world like Korean food, a monstrous PC, specs, and the fastest internet connection, she realized she couldn't fulfill those wishes. Instead, she asked him to ask for something she could give him from Isgard. Soon, the saint realized she couldn't fulfill Kim's desires and prepared for the return ceremony. Kim had not been in this room for a long time, and he had many memories that he did not want to relive. The saint asked him to stand in the middle of the summoning seal where he was originally summoned. After Kim stood there, the saint released the protection of the saint. Although it was called protection, it was just a leash that restricted him from fighting the saint. Kim was finally going to be released from this cycle. The saint told him that she really couldn't understand why he was giving up his incredible power that he had obtained here. Kim then told her to mind her own business, and asked if she wasn't concerned that after the seal was gone, she could die by his hand. But the saint was willing to accept the risk since she had started everything. After removing the protection, she asked him if he wanted to harm her. If not, she would proceed with the next step of the ritual. This involved removing the powers he had gained in Isgard. However, he used his dark magic to prevent her from doing so. He didn't want to lose all the power he had earned through hard work. It was a lie that he would give it all up. Then, he used his dark magic to open the dimensional portal, which was impossible for a dark mage to do. She tried to stop him, warning of the danger of dimensional travel. Surprisingly, she didn't know that he had practiced it over 1,000 times and had reached the pinnacle of his dark magic abilities. Finally, he left through the portal, cursing her. In the following scene, we find Kim back in his original world after escaping that dreadful place. He was thrilled to be back and eager to play his favorite games. However, he was disappointed to find that the network was down. To add to his dismay, regular soldiers were patrolling the neighborhood. Suddenly, one of the soldiers noticed something and became alert, but soon realized it was just a civilian. However, civilians were not allowed in that restricted area, and it turned out to be none other than our protagonist, Kim. The soldier advised him to move to a safer area. Kim assumed that they were conducting a training exercise. Suddenly, a monster appeared out of nowhere and attacked Kim from behind. One of the soldiers yelled for Kim to run. However, Kim realized that his demonic energy was gone. He quickly improvised and used his bare hands to defeat the monster, leaving the soldiers astonished. After killing the monster, the protagonist Kim is thinking about why the monster appeared on Earth. The soldiers are now scared of Kim because of the scene they witnessed. In the following scene, Kim is seen sitting in a car with one of the soldiers who explains to him the consequences of his actions, stating that he could end up in jail. However, given their commander's orders not to escalate the situation, they're simply letting Kim go. Kim tries to explain that he's not aware of the current happenings in Korea due to living abroad, which was an obvious lie as he had been transported to another world. It's then that Kim realizes that Korea isn't the same place he once knew and ponders over the events that might have occurred in the last 2 years. Around the age of 7, Kim had witnessed the emergence of dungeons, which brought forth monsters that started appearing in real life. With the arrival of dungeons, superhumans called Awaken also surfaced, endowed with abilities that far surpassed those of an average human. They formed a group called the Hunter Corps, which was newly established at the military base, and made it their mission to eradicate the monsters as soon as they appeared. Prior to Kim's summoning by the Saint, Korea had no potential dangers of being harmed in civilian areas. Kim soon became anxious about his game, Dungeon Power Fighting, and pondered if the server had been shut down due to the recent phenomenon. He began questioning the effort he had put into returning home if he couldn't even enjoy his favorite game. Unfortunately, the server remained closed. The soldier, having overheard Kim's words, grew suspicious of him. Although the whole world was in turmoil, Kim seemed to be ignorant of it all. The soldier refrained from asking him anything as he was intimidated by Kim's strength. Kim then asked the soldier if the game developers had been evacuated safely and if it was still possible to get a job at a game company these days. The soldier soon explained to Kim that the reason for the current dire situation was the weird phenomenon that had started spreading from the dungeons 2 years ago. One day, the dungeons began to appear more frequently and started getting larger, but the biggest problem was the increasing number of giant monsters emerging from these strange dungeons. As a result, the military could no longer control the dungeons, and the situation escalated to the point of locking down some civilian areas. Since then, the military has been trying different methods to fight back, but they lack the numbers to do so effectively. After listening to the soldier's explanation, Kim asked if the game companies were all right. As the soldier conversed with Kim, he inquired about his age. Kim's response was that he was 21 years old. Upon hearing this, the soldier told that Kim should soon enlist in the military. He would be required to serve for 5 years in the military. Kim was taken aback by the sudden news, as he had planned to unwind and play Dungeon Power Fighter upon returning home. But now, it seemed that he had no choice but to enlist for the next 5 years. In that moment, his phone beeped with a message indicating his enlistment date, and to his surprise, it was the very next day. As the next scene unfolds, we see Kim engrossed in playing his favorite game, while reminiscing about his past when his parents went missing. He had secluded himself in his house and spent most of his time playing games. When he was in grade 12, he was summoned to Isgard without having made a single friend. However, the PC room has now become a forgotten paradise of humanity for Kim. After satisfying his gaming cravings, he decided to check the internet for news articles. To his surprise, he discovered that everything the soldier had said was true, including the enlistment date that he had received from the Military Manpower Administration. Kim then realized that he would have been able to clear all the dungeons by himself if he had all of his powers from Isgard. Unfortunately, his body is completely depleted of the demonic energy, which is the main source of his dark magic. However, he is not entirely defenseless, and he still believes that he can clear all the dungeons by himself. After contemplating for some time, he resolved to take matters into his own hands and devise a plan to solve this problem. The next day, Kim arrived at the military base and was greeted by a gloomy atmosphere, as everyone seemed to be feeling down. Suddenly, a loudspeaker announcement instructed all soldiers to report to the auditorium immediately. In the auditorium, the military officials addressed the new soldiers in a harsh and critical manner. Listening to their harsh words, Kim recalled his previous master who used to beat him mercilessly during training. He realized that he had forgotten to seek revenge on that cruel person before coming to the military base. Nevertheless, compared to his previous master, the Earth instructors seemed to be much nicer to him. Shortly after, the battalion commander offered the troops the opportunity to join the Hunter Corps by asking them to raise their hands. Despite knowing that hunters receive different treatment than regular troops, nobody stepped forward and remained silent. However, one of the instructors spoke up and informed the commander that there was a volunteer. It was none other than protagonist Kim. The instructor then promptly asked Kim to step forward, and he leaped into action, impressively jumping high into the air before landing in front of the commander. The entire battalion was amazed by his remarkable display of athleticism. Kim then expressed his interest in applying to the Hunter Corps to the instructor. The next scene shows Kim's past, when he was in Isgard 645 days before returning to Earth. In the Forgotten Canyon, Kim can be seen talking to himself about the challenges of being a dark mage. Despite their incredible skill, dark mages face a unique challenge: it's their demonic energy. Unlike regular mages whose mana naturally restores itself, a dark mage must regularly collect demonic energy by defeating monsters. However, replenishing demonic energy by using monsters is not efficient, and Kim's job image is so poor that he couldn't find any party members to assist him. Kim's situation is perilous, as running out of demonic energy while in a dungeon could mean certain death. The only viable solution for a dark mage to replenish and retain their demonic energy is to defeat monsters with maximum strength. The life of a dark mage is full of turmoil, and Kim knows this all too well. In the present scene, the battalion commander informed Kim that a troop from the Hunter Corps would arrive if he waits there. Then, the commander asked him if he had any particular reason for applying to the Hunter Corps, given the current circumstances where many members with special abilities are returning to the regular army. Kim responded that he has business in the dungeons. In Korea, all dungeons are managed by the army, and the Hunter Corps has the first priority in subjugating monsters within them. The Hunter Corps is a highly skilled unit where members can advance in ranks based on their abilities, regardless of their service period or limits. If Kim enlists, he will be able to enter the dungeons, where he can clear most of them alone and encounter monsters with demonic energy. By doing so, he can recover his lost powers, advance quickly. If that happens, then the Dungeon Power Fighter developer can relax and develop the fourth awakening stage of the game, and Kim will become a high-salary public hero. That's what he thought. Shortly after, a sergeant from the Hunter Corps, named Lee Sungo, arrived and reported to the battalion commander. The commander informed Sungo that Kim was their only reported recruit. Sungo then questioned Kim about his hunter abilities, asking if he had awakened as a hunter and could open his status window to show his stats. Kim was taken aback by the sergeant's directness and thought to himself, "Are all Hunter Corps like this?" While Kim was familiar with the concept of a status window from his time in Isgard, he rarely used it there as it only provided numerical values for his stats and abilities. Curious about how it worked in this world, Kim opened his status window, only to discover that it contained an error. Meanwhile, at the Hunter Corps Training Center, the battalion commander is having a conversation with a new recruit named Sun Yunseo. She expresses her concern that she may be given special treatment during her training period if the battalion commander called her here because of her father. However, the battalion commander assures her that this is not the case. He called her here to inform her that a renowned rookie has recently enlisted, and he wants to encourage her before training. He explains that the country is always in need of skilled individuals like her on the field, and as a citizen and soldier, he wants to express his gratitude. As the conversation continues, the battalion commander reveals that he received an interesting report earlier in the day about a potential new comrade for Yunseo. He asks if she would like to pay a visit together and see what this new recruit is all about. The scene shifts to Kim, who is now inside the Hunter Training Center, and he is visibly excited to see it. However, the sergeant warns him not to get too excited because his enlistment in the Hunter Corps is not yet decided. The sergeant explains that Kim is a special case, and he will personally test him. If Kim is found to be lying, then he will have to enlist in the military police. Kim asks about the test, and the sergeant challenges him to move a red stone, a dense and heavy mineral byproduct of dungeons, even an inch within 10 minutes. Kim glad the test is simple, which enrages the sergeant. Sergeant then thought there is no way to check another person's status window. There always been trash people who tried to take advantage of the Hunter Corps with mediocre abilities. Kim jumps 5 meters high onto the podium in the regular soldier recruit center, but to the sergeant's surprise, an error appears on Kim's status window. He can't believe it and thinks it's utter nonsense. This scene is seen by the Corps commander and the new recruit. Commander then told the new recruit that Kim apparently showcased incredible physical abilities, but his status window shows an error. The battalion commander never even heard of such a case. As the training commander of the Hunter Corps, he have high hopes to see how unique this recruit will be. Meanwhile, Kim knew about this stone that was strewn all around Isgard dungeons. This stone is ridiculously heavy mineral, but at this size he can easily push it away. Kim then uses his power to punch the store, thinking it might have some demonic energy in it, but shattered into pieces. Everyone who was watching was stunned because they never thought someone could do the impossible. It had never been done before, and even Sergeant was amazed. He was speechless after seeing the incredible sight. Sergeant admired Kim's monstrous abilities silently, while Kim was curious about why the stone didn't have any demonic energy in it. In the next scene, we meet Na Min-hyuk, who is undergoing running training along with other recruits to join the Hunter Corps. During the training, he realizes that something is not quite right. Although he expected it to be tough, he never anticipated it to be so extreme. The training is unlike anything he has ever experienced before. They have to engage in real battles against enemies and monsters that emerge from the dungeons day and night. The rule is that they have to train for 4 weeks without any breaks, pushing themselves to the limit. The training involves running with sandbags, which is incredibly strenuous as it feels like they are carrying extra weight. Additionally, they must also climb the infamous long stairway of 6,000 steps. During the training, Instructor Sergeant Lee Sung-go constantly bothered and hassled everyone by checking their finishing times. Na Min-hyuk initially believed that this was necessary, but his opinion changed as soon as he noticed Kim, the protagonist, during the training session. Kim's remarkable performance stunned everyone, and they couldn't take their eyes off him as he breezed through the training like it was a morning jog for him. Despite the grueling training, Kim's body felt incredibly light, as if he could fly with all the energy coursing through him. Once the training ended, he was rewarded with excellent meals, a far cry from the meager offerings he had to endure during his 2 years in Isgard. Moreover, the Hunter Corps paid handsomely and even provided time for recruits to play games. This made Kim firmly believe that the Hunter Corps was the best choice for him. With an immense surge of excitement, he ran even faster while other recruits watched in awe and disbelief. Even Sergeant Lee grew increasingly frustrated at how Kim seemed to complete everything faster and with ease compared to the others. When it normally took a human 1 hour to complete the run, Kim seemed singularly focused on finishing it because Lee had claimed that he could go on an outing if he finished the run in 30 minutes, and received a pass from Lee. Immediately after finishing the run in just 21 minutes, something that none of the other trainees had ever achieved, he thought about Kim facing the dungeon monsters. Kim possessed the necessary fitness and requirements to join the Hunter Corps, so he decided to keep an eye on him. After completing their training, the group felt exhausted, and the thought of doing it all over again the next day left them feeling frustrated. Some even found themselves excited over a mere 1-point increase in their stamina stat. However, Kim was taken aback by this situation as he was accustomed to seeing his stats skyrocket by tens on a daily basis back in Isgard. While his comrades chatted about Kim's plans for the outing pass he had just earned, Kim remained unsure of what to say. As they continued to converse, they inquired about Kim's workout routine and praised him as unbeatable. As Kim reflected on his past life in Isgard, he recalled how nobody was ever willing to talk to him due to the belief that speaking to a dark mage brought bad luck. However, these new acquaintances treated him like a friend. After their conversation, they went to the PC room together to enjoy their free time and thought of getting 2 hours of sleep, which was considered a luxury in his time in Isgard, as Kim was barely able to sleep for 1 hour a day. Now he is able to deplete his game fatigue on a daily basis, thanks to the Hunter Corps and the authorities. As the next day's training commenced, the recruits were tasked with running 40 kilometers in just 2 hours in order to earn their breakfast. Kim completed the run effortlessly, as if it were just another mundane task. While the other recruits struggled and felt like they were on the brink of collapse, Kim strolled through the challenge with ease. One of the recruits marveled at Kim's composure, noting that he wasn't even breaking a sweat. The recruit went on to share that he had heard rumors that Kim had been gaming all night, with only a 2-hour break over the past 4 weeks. Following the incident, an announcement ensued, with the higher-ups expressing extreme disappointment in all the new recruits. It was revealed that they were in the last week of training, and only half of the recruits had managed to complete the bare minimum of the training. While Kim was perplexed by the lieutenant's third-person reference, the others were filled with fear as he warned them that they would perish in a month and a half if they were deployed to fight against the dungeon monsters. He also mentioned the final training, which was the dungeon adjustment training. Although most dungeons disappeared after defeating all the monsters, some remained and would continuously transform, becoming training facilities for the hunter court to experience a variety of environments. As the trainees contemplated this, all they could think of was their impending doom, as they could barely pass the basic training they had started. When everyone was feeling frustrated due to the tension, the lieutenant appeared to be pleased with their expressions, as if he was controlling his horses. According to him, only strict discipline and rewarding the trainees with basic prizes could lead them to a better future. He claimed that they should not be discouraged as success could be achieved if they used their brains. Furthermore, the trainee who achieved the highest points in the examination would be rewarded with a 2-night and 3-day vacation pass to enjoy their free time. The lieutenant thought that his announcement of the vacation pass would lift their spirits, but it failed to affect anyone except for Kim, who was overjoyed to hear the news. The next day, all the trainees were taken in front of a massive dungeon for their final training session. While the group contemplated what awaited them inside, the sudden arrival of a 2.5 truck shocked them. The ensuing dust cloud left everyone disoriented, except for Kim, who managed to keep his footing. As they made eye contact with the truck carriers, filled with unknown entities, confusion spread among the group. Upon closer inspection, it became apparent that the trucks were carrying dungeon hounds. The sight of these dungeon monsters frightened every newcomer at the entrance, except for Kim, who had already faced far worse. While everyone else was busy being petrified, Kim viewed the hounds as nothing more than Maltese or Chihuahuas. As the scared recruits tremble, the lieutenant steps forward and commands them to be strong, reminding them that they will soon face monsters during their final test. Although his words are meant to encourage them, they can't help but feel even more afraid. Undeterred, the lieutenant continues speaking, outlining the rules. They will form a team of 4 recruits and enter the transforming dungeon, with the singular objective of defeating a hound within an hour. To survive the battle against these fearsome beasts, the only rule is to strengthen their core. If they feel scared, they must use their wits and fight with all their might. Although the recruits are frightened, they have no option but to obey their lieutenant's command to hasten their preparations. The groups are formed one by one, and each recruit is outfitted with a Hunter Corps exclusive safety suit designed to safeguard their physical bodies from the hound's attacks. Despite the armor provided by the authorities, the newbies are still anxious, and their legs quiver with fear throughout their preparations. As for Kim, he can't help but think about the cost of the suit, and he dreads wearing it since he can sense everyone's sweat on it, creating a disgusting aura. When he abruptly asks the lieutenant if he can take off the suit, the lieutenant is initially taken aback but then observes Kim's face and calms down. The lieutenant permits Kim to remove the suit but emphasizes that even though Kim may be more skilled than the others, he mustn't be the only one to take out the hounds. Teamwork is essential. As the guys are given knives and other weapons, they discuss how to plan their strategy against the hounds. Kim, however, takes it easy and decides to instruct them on what to do. He shouts out, advising them not to be intimidated when the hounds attack and to grab their legs and snap their backs in half. He continues by saying that if the hounds are still not dead, they should fold their backs in opposite directions and rip them apart, just like tearing apart kimchi while eating. When he finishes his speech, he's the only one amused by his words, while the others stare at him, clueless about what he means. After the lieutenant makes his announcement, Sergeant Lee promptly opens the gates of the 2.5 trucks, allowing the group of hounds to rush inside the transforming dungeon with lightning speed. The new recruits are left puzzled, wondering why the hounds didn't charge at them. Kim takes the initiative to explain that the dungeon is their home. which sparks excitement among the group. Kim can relate to the monster's attachment to their home, having been away from his own for some time. However, the recruit's elation quickly dissipates when the lieutenant approaches them and demands that Kim's group goes in first. When they finally receive clearance to enter the dungeon, Kim expresses his eagerness to remove the heavy armor, which he deems quite filthy. This statement raises eyebrows among his comrades, leaving them uncertain if he is serious or not. Amidst the hardcore training regimen, some instructors are strategically positioned inside the dungeon to oversee the recruits' progress and ensure their well-being. As Kim's team ventures into the dungeon, one of the instructors immediately recognizes him due to the special attention he had received. Kim had demonstrated remarkable prowess in the last 4 weeks, and the instructor wonders if he will continue to dominate the monsters. Meanwhile, Kim evaluates the situation and ponders whether the dungeon hounds are ready to attack. He knows that they are infamous for their impatience, and considers subduing them quickly. However, he acknowledges that doing so could compromise the training process for others. Kim quickly notifies his comrades of the approaching monsters, but they fail to grasp the urgency of his message. Consequently, Kim takes charge, waiting for the monsters to make the first move. He strikes a devastating blow with a powerful punch when one of them enters his combat range. Unfortunately, one of his comrades is having difficulty fighting off the monsters. Kim intervenes, delivering a fatal kick to the hound and shielding his comrade from harm. Kim urges his comrades to fight back against the monsters, emphasizing that fear will only make them vulnerable. Though Kim had been relaxed before, he adopts a more assertive tone to stress the gravity of the situation. Kim observes that the others begin to heed his advice for defeating the monsters, and even the instructors watching from behind the rocks are impressed by his leadership. Retrieving his comrade's head fills the team with elation, as if Kim were a Hunter Corps sergeant who had traveled back in time before enlisting, much like in the novels. Kim not only resolved the crisis with his own physical strength but also displayed exceptional leadership by getting his teammates to cooperate, resulting in the highest score ever achieved. As they exited the dungeon, Kim repeatedly inquired if he would receive the vacation pass, but the instructors were not authorized to disclose that information yet. Kim's frustration with the instructors led him to make a jest, but suddenly, the entire dungeon began to shake violently, as if an earthquake had struck. Kim was quick to acknowledge the truth: the dungeon was transforming on its own. His comrades looked on, bewildered, and one of them asked what would happen next. It soon became apparent that the dungeon was closing on its own, without any outside intervention. After the closure of the dungeon, fear and confusion spread amongst the group, as they questioned what could have caused it to happen with over a month still left before the internal structure was set to change. The instructors swiftly took action by evacuating the new recruits to a safer location and reassuring them that the closure was an unexpected occurrence. They informed them that they would wait for an hour in their current spot to see if the dungeon entrance would open again, as per the manual. The instructors expressed confidence that the Hunter Corps were also assessing the situation from outside and that the lieutenant would take the necessary steps to address the issue. Thus, they advised the recruits to remain calm and wait patiently without worrying. Kim's perspective differs from the rest because the Hunter Corps chose to train in this dungeon with the confidence that it wouldn't face any unexpected situations like the current one. The sudden closure of the dungeon entrance, which was always open, seems ominous to him. As he observes the instructors, he senses their tension and anxiety. If, as Kim suspects, the dungeon has turned into an enclosed dungeon, then it may pose a greater challenge to defeat. However, despite the complexity of the situation, he remains optimistic since he is present to lend his assistance. Both of the instructors believe that this is the worst-case scenario because the dungeon has now transformed into an enclosed dungeon. When a dungeon entrance disappears, there are typically 2 instances. The first is when the dungeon dissipates naturally after defeating it, and the second is the enclosed dungeon case where the portal gate vanishes upon an outsider entering. Since they were in the dungeon, while it transformed into an enclosed dungeon, it's reasonable for the gate to have disappeared. Additionally, there will likely be multiple monsters to contend with since every single one must be defeated to exit an enclosed dungeon. Consequently, it's unlikely that the instructors can offer any assistance from outside. With 4 recruits who have no real battle experience, and 2 instructors, they all have to clear this dungeon. As expected, since the instructors informed them of their situation, they've all tensed up. They don't know which monsters have appeared, and if they're unlucky, this could be the end for all of them. But it's not like they can just sit still. They have to keep moving while they still have most of their strength. At this rate, they'll be completely annihilated even if they face goblins, since it would take more than 10 minutes for an instructor to take down one. The most successful and realistic plan of action would be to utilize the protective suits that the recruits have equipped. Soon Kim notices something unusual. One of the instructors faints before he can even identify the issue. In a swift turn of events, the other instructor rushes to help but ends up collapsing as well. Alarmed by this, Kim instructs the other recruits to stay away from them, as they might face a similar situation if they come any closer. As he picks up a familiar scent, Kim tosses both instructors to the recruits and instructs them to stay by the exit and not follow him. Despite this, one of the recruits asks where he is going and pleads with him to stop, as it could be dangerous. Kim is filled with an overwhelming sense of excitement as he senses the demonic energy, the very reason why the instructor fainted. He knows that even his guardians, who are specially protected against demonic energy, are at risk when facing monsters, but to ordinary humans, it's even more fatal. However, to dark mages, demonic energy is equivalent to a charger for a dead phone, making it all the more thrilling. As Kim ventures further into the cave, he uncovers the source of the dense demonic energy. Despite the lack of any visible traces of a monster, he looks up and spots the Dark Hound, a creature that cannot hide from a dark mage like him. He never expected to encounter this monster here, and he knows that this species is far more overpowering compared to ordinary hounds. Kim's first encounter with the monster occurred roughly a year into his summoning in Isgard. To his dismay, he found himself face to face with a creature he had never seen before in any monster guide on Earth. Without hesitation, he tried to attack it, unaware of the danger that lurked before him. The Dark Hound wasted no time in retaliating and lunged at Kim, but he managed to defend himself by delivering a powerful punch that killed the monster instantly. Despite its demise, the Dark Hound's death unleashed an overwhelming amount of demonic energy, which explained why they were notoriously difficult to defeat. Their venomous blood proved fatal to ordinary humans, causing their skin to rot upon contact. Kim, a dark mage, was immune to the toxic effects of the Dark Hound's blood. He proceeded to absorb the dark energy, which had no adverse effects on him whatsoever. In the previous video, we were captivated by an intense battle between Kim and the notorious Dark Hound. Despite being notoriously difficult to defeat, the Dark Hound lunges at Kim, but he defends himself with a powerful punch that instantly kills the monster. Nevertheless, the Dark Hound's death unleashes a surge of overwhelming demonic energy, explaining why it was such a formidable foe. Additionally, the Dark Hound's venomous blood is fatal to ordinary humans, causing their skin to rot upon contact. Thankfully, Kim is a dark mage and is immune to the toxic effects of the Dark Hound's blood, giving him a significant advantage in the battle. Despite the danger, Kim emerges victorious by defeating the Dark Hound and absorbing the demonic energy. After experiencing the thrill of absorbing demonic energy for the first time on Earth, Kim feels excited to absorb demonic energy after a long while. Currently feeling around 5% charged. However, he couldn't help but wonder what the Dark Hound, which was typically found in Isgard, was doing in a place like this. While he had considered the possibility of monsters on Earth possessing demonic energy, the instructor's reaction suggested this was a first. Curiously, he recalled no mention of either demonic energy or the Dark Hound during his training at the center. As he pondered how the creature managed to travel dimensions, it was highly unlikely that the Dark Hound could have managed dimensional travel on its own, as that required mastery of dark magic powers at the level of someone like Kim, or the saint who could utilize the powers of the gods. It was an ability that was beyond the reach of most. The protagonist then wondered if he was overthinking something minor. Following that, he searched for the Dark Hound's corpse, which he needed to make a report, and ultimately found it. Meanwhile, the instructors slowly opened their eyes and regained their senses. They were shocked and asked the new recruits if they were all right and if anyone was injured. The recruits reassured them that they were fine. However, Kim had already ventured deep into the dungeon by himself, which left the instructors stunned upon hearing it from the recruits. They were told what had happened while they were unconscious, and one instructor grew angry at Kim's recklessness in such a dangerous situation. Though the instructor knew that Kim's behavior alone could be grounds for expulsion, he couldn't say anything as he had failed to protect the recruits and fainted himself. Realizing that they needed to act quickly to save Kim, the instructor knew he couldn't dwell on his anger at Kim's behavior. As they discussed their plan to rescue him, one of the recruits informed another instructor that Kim had returned, but not alone. He had brought the Dark Hound with him. The instructors were shocked upon seeing the creature, with one noting that it looked different than usual. Kim then threw the Dark Hound to the ground and instructed them to examine it. Upon closer inspection, they realized that this was the creature responsible for causing them to faint. The other recruits were astonished to see that Kim had defeated such a large monster on his own. "If the ones we defeated were light class, then this one must be heavy," one of the recruits commented. Soon after, the dungeon gate opened, and they were about to leave when one of the instructors stopped Kim and asked him if he really defeated the Dark Hound on his own. Kim nodded in confirmation. After that, one of the instructors told the other instructor to escort the other recruits out of the dungeon, and he would follow shortly. When the other recruits had left, the instructor told Kim that he needed to report everything to the lieutenant once they were outside. The instructor also warned Kim not to leave anything out, including how incompetent their instructors were. After all, they had fainted and left the recruits by themselves, and they had no excuses, even if they were sent to military prison. The instructor then thanked Kim, saying that because of him, everyone was safe, and he really appreciated it. Kim felt embarrassed by the praise. The instructor then told Kim that they should go back. The instructor didn't know how to report the cause of unconsciousness, and they needed to find out what had caused it. After receiving these compliments during the last week of training, Kim was feeling happy. But as he was about to leave, a status window appeared before his eyes indicating that an error had been fixed. Kim was shocked to see it, and wondered what kind of error it was. As he examined his status window, he found something ridiculous and stupid written on it, not just in this world but also in Isgard. The mention in his status window revealed that he was the founder of the Lumi Nuna is my favorite character cult. Kim was confused and wondered why it was even there. Lumi is a character from Dungeon Power Fighter, and when Kim reached the peak of his dark magic powers in Isgard, he created that cult as a joke to get rid of the fanatics who followed him around like stalkers. However, it only created more fanatics in the end. Soon after, Kim realized that his stats were much worse than he had expected, and it looked like he had become significantly weaker. Upon his return, he noticed that all of his demonic energy was gone, and he somewhat expected another penalty for dimensional travel. However, from his endless list of skills, only one remained. It's the corruption skill, and it was ranked low at E. Kim couldn't help but think that the effect of this corruption skill was probably just a stomach ache. He thought to himself, "Shit, it's not like this is a third-rate novel. It's so absurd it makes me want to vomit." Kim then thought about his current situation and realized that he cannot achieve his objectives with his current weakened state. However, he remembered that he had reached the peak of his dark magic powers in Isgard before and believed that he could do it again. His top priority now was to recover his power as soon as possible to help the game company, who are facing development delays due to the monsters. Kim was confident that he could overcome this challenge, as it was nothing compared to the difficult times he had endured in Isgard. With determination, he left the dungeon gate, telling the game company to just wait for him. Soon after on that day, the entire training center was in utter chaos over the fact that a dungeon gate had closed while training was in session. The lieutenant had not given clear orders, and a mere recruit had managed to defeat a new species of monster, while the instructors were unable to do anything. Due to this unprecedented series of events, the recruits who should have received private ranks and enjoyed their freedom until dispatch, were now on standby. In the next scene, the group of newbie recruits were huddled together, discussing the unfortunate turn of events that had led them to be stuck on standby. Some of them began to wonder if they were cursed, to which one of the recruits turned to Kim's teammate and asked if the rumors about Kim catching a hound by himself were true. Kim's teammate confirmed that it was indeed true, recalling that the hound was massive and had even been mistaken for a cow at first glance. The recruits marveled at Kim's bravery and skill, speculating that he could potentially rise through the ranks and become a sergeant in just 2 years. However, the conversation soon turned to the reality of the Hunter Corps advancement exam, which was notoriously difficult. Many of the recruits would likely only make it to the rank of corporal, even if they stayed for the full 5 years. In fact, there were even some hunters who were discharged at the rank of private first class. The recruits couldn't help but feel a twinge of uncertainty and fear, wondering what their own futures in the Hunter Corps would hold. The scene then shifted to the protagonist, who was seen reporting to the Hunter Corps commander. As Kim made his report, he couldn't help but notice the commander punishing a lieutenant for not checking the dungeon properly. It was a stark reminder of the stakes at play in their line of work. Soon after, the battalion commander called Kim over and revealed that, since he had received the highest score, he had a special proposal for him. The commander asked if Kim was interested in hearing it. In the following moment, the battalion commander regards Kim as a crane among a flock of chickens, a well-known idiom used to portray an individual who is exceptional and stands out from the rest. It's not every day that one comes across such a remarkable person, and Kim undoubtedly fits that description. He possesses an extraordinary set of skills that are a true spectacle to witness. Finding such a rare talent in the world is a difficult feat, and it would be a national loss if someone like him were to join the regular ranks. Despite the pressing need for additional personnel, rules dictate that privates cannot take promotion exams for another year. However, there may be a solution for Kim if he volunteers to join the Hunter Corps in Chowan of Gangwon-do. As the training commander, the battalion commander has the authority to grant exceptions and will do so for Kim, which means he won't have to wait for a year. The prospect of joining the invincible Hunter Squad in Chowan may seem daunting to some, but for someone as talented as Kim Min-jun, it should be a walk in the park. However, it seems that the promotion exception alone isn't enough for Kim, and he must go to Chowan to expedite his promotion. This region is known for its extreme conditions, with freezing weather and constant snowfall. It's also notorious for the appearance of dungeons and monsters, making it the most extreme front line. Despite the challenges, Kim is more than capable of rising to the occasion. Kim believes that if he can advance, the location of his deployment becomes irrelevant. Being granted a promotion exception would be ideal, and the abundance of dungeons in the 104th Division makes it the perfect place for him to improve his skills. He sees this as an opportunity he can't afford to miss. Kim is determined to rise through the ranks, and he's well aware that the higher his rank, the broader his scope of activities. His plan is to excel in dungeon subjugation and advance party missions, since there's no better way to get promoted than to achieve success in these areas. Despite the warnings from his comrades, Kim volunteers to go to Chowan, which is considered the most extreme front line due to its unforgiving weather, frequent snow, and sudden appearance of monsters and dungeons. When the battalion commander hears of Kim's decision, he's shocked but also impressed by his determination. As they departed for their respective bases, one of the recruits told Kim to contact him once he arrived. The recruit couldn't understand why Kim would volunteer for a place that everyone else wanted to avoid, but Kim simply replied that his goals were beyond their comprehension. Kim found himself alone soon after, but his solitude was short-lived as a massive truck arrived to pick him up. Mage, a member of the 104th Hunter Division, was there to receive him. Mage apologized for the delay caused by the snow and informed Kim that they were headed to the squad. Kim climbed into the back of the truck, wondering if he was really starting his life as a soldier. He was prepared for the challenges that lay ahead, such as tough training and frequent battles with monsters. However, there was one thing he was worried about: hazing. Kim wasn't sure if he could handle it right now, but he knew he had no choice but to endure it. If he were to strike a superior even once, he could end up in military prison as a regular soldier. It was a risk he couldn't afford to take. After arriving at the 2nd Battalion of the Invincible Hunter Corps where it was snowing heavily, Mage brought Kim to his seniors' room and instructed them to take care of him. Kim's seniors were thrilled to see a new recruit and eagerly asked for his name. When Kim revealed his name, they couldn't help but ask if he was the rumored super soldier who defeated a hound on his own. Suddenly, one of the seniors threw Kim's bag and told his roommate to unpack his stuff. Kim couldn't help but wonder if these were the leaders of the dormitory, as they looked at him with a gleeful expression, almost as if they had just discovered a new toy. Despite feeling uneasy about the situation, Kim knew he would have to endure whatever hazing they had in store for him if he wanted to succeed in the military. One of the senior members approached Kim and asked him why he chose to come to the front, even though he could have gone to the rear if his scores were good. Kim replied by stating that he had heard that the front line was the best place to gain real experience, and the fastest way to advance in his career. The senior member then asked Kim to showcase his talent. At this point, Kim wondered if displaying his talent would make any difference, but he decided to go ahead and show them his skills anyway. Kim told his seniors that he would demonstrate his ability to do one-finger push-ups. Initially, one of the senior members became angry, stating that they could do that all day long. However, another senior member encouraged Kim to show his talent. After witnessing Kim's one-finger push-up, they were amazed to find out that he was actually performing a one-finger vertical push-up. As they watched Kim perform his impressive one-finger push-up, one of the senior members turned to the other and asked if they had anyone in their platoon who could do the same. The second senior member responded, suggesting that Sergeant Lee Sungo might be capable of such a feat. Coincidentally, at that very moment, Sergeant Lee Sungo entered the room and rudely dismissed the group, telling them to leave. Kim immediately recognized the sergeant's voice, realizing that it was indeed Sergeant Lee Sungo. The sudden interruption by Sergeant Lee Sungo left the readers wondering what might happen next. Perhaps he had other plans for Kim and the other soldiers, or maybe he was simply not pleased with their activities. Whatever the reason, the readers were left with a sense of anticipation and uncertainty as to what would happen next. As the chapter came to a close, it was clear that the story was far from over, and there were many more twists and turns to come. As Sergeant Lee entered the room, he was greeted by some of Kim's seniors who questioned why he was pretending to be exhausted when he was just dispatched as an instructor. One of them even insinuated that he earned a vacation for tormenting kids and asked how many days he got this time. Angered by their accusations, Sergeant Lee responded firmly, "I got 4 days, okay? Stop pestering and leave me alone." However, one of the seniors retorted that he was such a party pooper that they were going to leave anyway. Another senior even went so far as to insult him, calling him a son of a bitch and his finger at him. Despite feeling provoked, Sergeant Lee knew that he couldn't beat them up and told himself to stay calm. Finally, the seniors left, and Kim thought to himself that they had finally gone. Soon after, Sergeant Lee lay in his bed, scrolling through a video on his phone that showed the volcanic dungeons and the constant damage caused by their naturally high temperature. As Sergeant Lee watched, Kim couldn't help but think about the vast difference in ranks, even in such a tiny space, and how it's not like the 80s anymore. Feeling a sense of responsibility towards Kim, Sergeant Lee immediately called Dong Jin, who Kim reported to, and instructed him to make sure to properly instruct Kim since he was Dong Jin's direct junior. Dong Jin introduced himself to Kim and suggested they talk over some food. He even received a special permit to visit the retail store so that they could enjoy a meal together. However, when Kim heard this, he couldn't help but think that he couldn't even go to retail stores as he wished. Upon arriving at the retail store, Dong Jin told Kim to pick out whatever he wanted to eat and assured him that he could eat as much as he liked. Kim was surprised and asked if Dong Jin was sure, saying that he ate a lot. Dong Jin replied, "Of course, pick whatever you want, eat as much as you like." However, when the retailer told Dong Jin the total cost of their purchase was 300,000 won, Dong Jin began shaking as he handed over his card. The retailer noticed and asked if Dong Jin was cold, and why he was shaking so much. As they began their meal, Dong Jin urged Kim to savor every bite of his food. Kim, curious about the rules surrounding the retail store, asked Dong Jin about the special permit he had mentioned earlier. Dong Jin replied that only privates first class and below were limited to visiting the store on weekends. Furthermore, there were restrictions on the use of other facilities as well. Gyms were available only to privates first class or above, while PC rooms required a rank of at least corporal. Kim was taken aback by these limitations and exclaimed that it was insane that only corporals and above could use PC rooms. Dong Jin sympathized with him but explained that it was not something a private first class like him could resolve. Kim asked if there was any way to change the situation, to which Dong Jin replied that he would need to advance to the rank of at least a sergeant to even attempt it, though that would not be easy. Feeling frustrated, Kim thought to himself that this was crossing the line, and there had to be another way besides advancing in rank. Dong Jin cautioned him that becoming a sergeant in the Hunter Corps was no easy task, and he had failed the advancement exam many times, resulting in him remaining a private first class for 3 years already. Determined to help Dong Jin, Kim pledged to get promoted quickly so he could bring Dong Jin up with him. As Kim and Dong Jin were chatting, another sergeant named Guangshik joined them. Guangshik asked who they had there, a new recruit and a private first class, and if they were enjoying some delicious food. Dong Jin invited Guangshik to join them. To their surprise, the sergeant didn't refuse the offer and joined them. Kim couldn't help but feel annoyed that as soon as he was done talking, someone else showed up. However, he decided to put it aside and focus on the conversation at hand. As they enjoyed their meal, Sergeant Guangshik mentioned that he wouldn't say anything about their conversation, but warned them that if they were useless during the firearms training tomorrow, they would both be in trouble. He made it clear that being new was not an excuse for poor performance, and asked Kim if he knew how to shoot. Dong Jin reassured the sergeant that he was just about to explain the firearms training to Kim. He explained that it was a bit different at their base compared to other places. As Sergeant Guangshik questioned Dong Jin about his performance, he asked if he had overstepped his boundaries and if Dong Jin thought he was overly concerned. Dong Jin quickly replied with an apology, and assured the sergeant that he had not overstepped his boundaries. Sergeant Guangshik continued to question Dong Jin, asking why he was still a private first class if he was doing so well. He wondered if Dong Jin thinks all of the advancement examiners were stupid. Kim couldn't help but think to himself that the sergeant was a pain in the ass. He decided to take matters into his own hands, and used his dark magic power on the sergeant. As a result, Sergeant Guangshik suddenly felt uncomfortable and started to inspect the food, wondering if it was expired. Dong Jin noticed the sudden change in the sergeant's behavior, and asked if everything was okay. The sergeant brushed it off, insisting that it was nothing, and quickly left the area. Kim was pleased with the results of his E-rank corruption skill, realizing that it could be useful in situations like this. Kim was curious about the firearms training that Dong Jin had mentioned earlier. Dong Jin explained that they would be using bullets with even higher power than the ICM bullets that they had used before. The improved conventional munitions known as ICM had been used by the Hunter Corps against large monsters, and the bullets they would be using at the training center were like a wild stallion in comparison. Dong Jin warned Kim that the recoil and sound of the gunfire would be much different than what he was used to, but reassured him that it was important to have strong firepower when dealing with monsters. Kim thought to himself that the comparison of a pony and a wild stallion was fitting, and he was excited for the training tomorrow. He also remembered the long-range weapons he had used in Isgard and thought they must be equivalent to an elephant in comparison to the wild stallion bullets. Nevertheless, Kim was looking forward to the training and was more than happy with the prospect of using wild stallion bullets. In the following scene, everyone went to the firearms training facility. Upon arriving at the firearms training facility, and Kim began his shooting training. However, during his session, he missed one shot. Once he had completed his training, one of the onlookers remarked, 19 direct hits and 1 miss. Everyone was surprised and started discussing among themselves, wondering if Kim was some kind of shooting machine or if it was just pure luck. They questioned whether it was possible to achieve such results with just luck. One of the senior officers mentioned that his personal best record was 14 hits, which was considered above average for the squad, but compared to Kim's performance, it seemed mediocre. Despite the skepticism and awe, it was clear that Kim's shooting skills were truly exceptional. The scene was witnessed by 2nd Lieutenant Mincheol and 1st Sergeant Taisik. Upon seeing Kim's remarkable marksmanship, Lieutenant Mincheol exclaimed, "My God, 19 headshots!" 1st Sergeant Taisik confirmed that the rumors about Kim being an elite were indeed true. The senior officers were impressed and asked Kim how he managed to shoot so accurately. Kim humbly replied that he simply followed his instructions. However, one of the other seniors pointed out that it's not like they weren't instructed. Sergeant Minji, who had appeared behind the seniors, congratulated Kim on his impressive shooting skills, firing 19 direct hits on his first round. He encouraged him to continue to show his best during the afternoon's special firearms training. Kim was left wondering what this special firearms training would entail. Dongjin was impressed by Kim's shooting skills and remarked, "Wow, Minjun, you're so good at shooting. You could have gotten a vacation if you had hit all 20 though." "It's a shame." Kim then asked what was so different about the special firearms training. Kim admitted that he hadn't heard much about it. Dongjin apologized for assuming that Kim would not be a good shooter and explained that new recruits were usually exempt from the special firearms training, as it took some time to get used to the squad's ICM bullets. However, Kim would go through a briefing nonetheless. With that, Dongjin gave a brief explanation of the special training. Dongjin explained that the special firearms training involved a 2-person team entering the training facility and eliminating monsters en route to the destination. Although these monsters were not highly dangerous, Kim would be dealing with moving targets and must be ready to counter their attacks. Additionally, he needed to watch out for the civilian target plates that pop up every now and then. Even if he defeated many monsters, hitting even one civilian target plate would result in an automatic failure. After explaining the details, Dongjin reassured Kim that there was no need to be scared just because he would be facing real monsters. The executives would be controlling the situation, so Kim should not worry. Upon hearing this, Kim thought that it sounded like so much fun. In the bustling canteen, everyone was enjoying their meals while Kim and Dongjin engaged in conversation. Dongjin expressed his disbelief at Kim's impressive 19 shots and complimented him by saying he was born to be a soldier. Kim graciously accepted the compliment and returned the favor by acknowledging Dongjin's respectable 13 shots. Dongjin humbly shared that although he had some experience, he didn't consider himself a great shooter. In contrast, Sergeant Lee was the real expert, averaging 17 direct hits, making him the top shooter in their squad. Kim pondered over this information and concluded that since the squad average was 10 hits, Sergeant Lee's performance was exceptional. As for Kim himself, he surmised that he may currently hold the number 1 position in the squad's ranking. Dongjin offered Kim words of encouragement, expressing his confidence in Kim's abilities to excel in the upcoming special firearms training. Intrigued, Kim asked Dongjin if they would be paired up as a team since it was mentioned that there would be 2-person teams. Dongjin replied that it was not up to them, as the executives would be making the final decision. Kim inquired further, asking about the criteria used to assign team members. Dongjin shared what he had heard through rumors, explaining that it would be determined through a ladder lottery system, which randomly paired up 2-person. The scene then shifted to the special arms shooting range room, a place of unmatched prowess. Sergeant Minji announced that training would commence in 5 minutes and instructed all troops to put on their bulletproof vests and stand by. Responding promptly, everyone began to prepare for the training, including Kim. Suddenly, Corporal Guangshik appeared behind Kim and informed him that he is on the same team with the newbie. He made a snide comment, suggesting that it was going to be a tough comparison, stating that a corporal and a private were worlds apart. Kim felt irritated by his remarks and couldn't help but think that Guangshik was his partner. From his expression, Kim could tell that Guangshik had not learned his lesson and would continue to haze him. Guangshik continued to taunt Kim, suggesting that the newbie should help improve their squad's average finish time of 3 minutes. He then told Kim to make sure that he finishes within 3 minutes. warning him that he would regret it if he didn't. Despite Guangxik's provocation, Kim remained silent and listened to his words. Guangxik then questioned Kim's confidence, asking him if his 19 hits were just a fluke. Kim replied that it was not the case, and he will try his best in the special arm training. However, Guangxik dismissed Kim's effort, stating that he only cared about the results. He warned Kim that if he finished later than him, he would be in big trouble. To further intimidate him, Guangxik suggested that Kim should observe the team ahead of them and learn from them. Once both of the competitors were ready, Sergeant Minji instructed them to proceed with the special firearms training. The training began with a group of 2 descending into the underground facility in individual elevators. This was meant to be a tactical exercise for slaying monsters while protecting civilian target plates in an enclosed area. However, in reality, it had become a competition amongst troops to complete the trial as fast and cleanly as possible, with the objective of pressing the finish button at the destination before their opponent. As the training continued, everyone's attention was focused on the screen. Kim couldn't help but notice that the monster marker size seemed to vary. Guangxik explained to Kim that the marker size depended on the monsters, with the more dangerous ones having bigger icons. He also mentioned that there were 2 monsters placed on each lane, and what they encountered was completely random, so nobody knew what to expect until they got there. After arriving at the location, one of them was immediately confronted by a menacing rake toad monster. Before he could even react, the creature launched a surprise attack, catching him off guard. Meanwhile, Kim couldn't help but notice that the guy in the first lane had initially made faster progress, but unfortunately encountered the monster. He realized that this setback would give his opponent a chance to catch up. As the other guy entered the stage, he encountered a vicious rat monster that attacked him. After defeating it, he felt confident and exclaimed that the rest of the training would be an easy win. But his optimism was short-lived when he found himself facing a daunting desert worm monster in the following stage. Later, first guy was surprised to encounter 2 consecutive rake toad monsters and wondered if it was some kind of joke. He was certain that the other guy must have finished by now, but upon reaching the end, he found that the other guy was still struggling to complete the training. Finally, he reached the button and pressed it, ending the training with a remarkable time of 2 minutes and 24 seconds. Everyone around him was amazed by his exceptional performance, and showered him with praise. A short while later, the second guy arrived at the end point, only to find that the button had already been pressed. Feeling unlucky and frustrated, aside from being late, he shot a civilian statue so he'd be disqualified anyways. As a result, the other guy lost the bet he had placed against the winner. Guangxik informed Kim that they had made a bet, to which Kim expressed his interest in making a similar wager with Guangxik. Kim proposed that the loser of the bet would grant the winner a wish, like a true gentleman. However, upon hearing this, Guangxik laughed and taunted Kim, insinuating that he only thought highly of himself because of the senior's kindness towards him. Despite Guangxik's ridicule, Kim was still eager to make the bet. Guangxik agreed to the terms but added a condition that if Kim lost, he would have to give Guangxik his salary for 3 months. Despite the added condition, Kim accepted the bet, and the game was on. As Sergeant Minji summoned Kim and Guangxik for their training, Minji inquired if there were any issues to report beforehand. Kim and Guangxik responded in the negative, prompting Minji to instruct them to proceed with their training. Kim couldn't help but feel like he had fallen for Guangxik's cheap provocation. He knew that it wasn't wise to stand out like a sore thumb, but his immaturity prevented him from ignoring someone's provocation. News of the bet between Private Kim and Corporal Guangxik had spread throughout the camp, and everyone was discussing it. Many were skeptical of Kim's chances against a more experienced corporal, and some even questioned if Kim would be able to handle the monsters they were training to fight. There was speculation about whether Sergeant First Class Kim Minji would need to intervene and rescue Kim. Suddenly, the ground began to shake, and the soldiers wondered if it was an earthquake. Dong Jin assured them that it was not, and they observed on the screen that one of the monsters was on the move. Meanwhile, Kim was deep in thought about the tremor, which he sensed had occurred close by. Suddenly, he was shocked to witness a scene he had never expected to see during training: a monster eating another monster. As Kim came face to face with the monster, it wasted no time and threw the rat monsters at him. But Kim, quick on his feet, dodged the attack effortlessly. As he evaded the monsters, a thought crossed his mind: was tonight's dinner supposed to be fried chicken? He pushed the thought aside and focused on finishing the fight as soon as possible. Kim knew that shooting mindlessly could result in hitting the wrong target and disqualify him. As he pondered over this, the monster attacked him fiercely, making him snap out of his thoughts. Without wasting a second, Kim unleashed his demonic power and threw a punch towards the monster. The punch landed perfectly, and the monster's right hand was destroyed. The monster, now enraged, attacked Kim with even more ferocity. But Kim kept his cool and assessed the situation. He realized that the monster had calmed down a bit, and this was his chance to shoot it down. As Kim pondered over his next move, something strange happened. The monster's hand regenerated, and soon it turned into a knife. Kim was taken aback, but he didn't let it distract him from the task at hand. Meanwhile, the others were left wondering what was happening to Kim. Some even speculated that there might have been an accident. In the back, Sergeant Minji was shocked to see the monster. He knew that it was Cyclops, also known as the Devouring Demon, a creature that could increase its regenerative and attack capabilities after consuming its energy source. But something didn't quite add up. Cyclops wouldn't have attacked unless its life was in danger, and it had broken free from captivity and gone on a rampage after consuming the other monster. Sergeant Minji couldn't help but wonder what could have provoked it. Despite the chaos around them, Kim and the monster continued their intense battle, each trying to gain the upper hand. As the battle raged on, Kim continued to dodge the monster's attacks with ease. He then loaded his gun and started shooting at the monster, reminding himself that this was supposed to be a firearm training exercise. With a well-aimed shot, Kim hit the monster's head, damaging its eye. Kim realized that the Cyclops' eye seemed to regenerate more slowly than the rest of its body, so he knew he needed to end the fight quickly. However, as he went in for the attack, the monster threw its left knife hand at him, making him realize that the monster knew exactly where to target him. Kim couldn't help but wonder, could the monster see? Or was it judging his location based on sound? As he pondered over this, the fight continued to intensify, with both Kim and the monster giving it their all. Kim continued to dodge the monster's attacks, but it seemed to be relentless in its pursuit. However, Kim then stopped one of the monster's punches with his bare hand, realizing that there was no way they would have used such a violent creature for training. He destroyed monster's eyes, but the monster still managed to detect his location twice in a row, leaving Kim to wonder if it was reacting to his demonic energy. Meanwhile, Sergeant Minji was prepared to go and rescue Kim, feeling responsible for what had happened. He knew that the Cyclops, a creature that could consume energy and increase in power, was not something a mere private could defeat. With his firearm at the ready, Sergeant Minji made his way towards Kim, determined to get him out of harm's way. He couldn't shake off the feeling that this was a catastrophe and that it was all his fault. The scene then shifted to Guangxik, who was running and confident that he would clock in at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. He believed that Private Kim had no chance against his speed and was happy that he would be able to take Kim's salary and spend it during his vacation. However, as he reached the end, he saw that Kim had already finished the training and was looking at the bottom. Kim noticed Guangxik approaching and pressed the button, shocking Guangxik that Kim had already completed the training. Meanwhile, Sergeant Minji arrived at the place where he thought Kim was fighting the monster, only to find the monster's dead body. He wondered how Kim had managed to defeat the monster. Soon after they finished the training, everyone was happy and clapping for Kim's achievement. They were impressed that Kim managed to finish the training in less than 2 minutes, something that no one had ever achieved before. Some even called Kim a monster for defeating the Cyclops monster by himself. Dongjin came running and asked if Kim was alright and if he had hurt himself during the training. Kim reassured him that he was fine, and then explained that he defeated the monster by following Dongjin's teachings. However, someone mentioned the bet between Kim and Guangxik, and told Kim won the bet. After hearing that, Guangxik threw a slap at the person's head for bringing up the topic. After slapping him on the head, Guangxik spoke out with frustration, "This isn't a fair situation, so obviously the bet is off. There was no way I could finish faster than the newbie. The special firearms training is designed to beat 2 monsters prior to reaching the destination. I defeated 2, just like the rules say, while Kim only had to face 1 monster. It's unfair. If he had faced 1 monster too, I would have finished quicker. Dongjin, why don't you say something? Is this fair?" Dongjin was left speechless after hearing this. Guangxik continued to press him with an angry expression, demanding that he say something and questioning if he had a death wish. As Kim was pondering the situation, he couldn't help but think that Guangxik was the worst. Even though defeating the monster with his fist was unexpected, Kim didn't feel good about it, and had planned to forget about the bet altogether. However, upon seeing Guangxik's behavior towards Private First Class Li Dongjin, Kim began to wonder why Guangxik was taking it out on him instead of him. Suddenly, someone behind Guangxik spoke up and asked if he wasn't ashamed of himself, given that the newbie took the bigger risk. Guangxik demanded to know who had said that, only to discover it was Sergeant Li. The sergeant proceeded to explain that normally, Cyclops were meek, but once they turned, the danger increased drastically. He then asked Guangxik if he thought there was anyone there who didn't know that Kim had faced a much tougher situation than him. Guangxik asked if Sergeant Li was trying to show off his rank in front of his juniors. But Sergeant Li stood his ground, responding that Guangxik was the one who had been showing off his rank. Guangxik pleaded with Sergeant Li to stop embarrassing him in front of the others and not to take his little joke too seriously. But Sergeant Li wasn't having it. He called Guangxik out, asking if everything that didn't go his way was just a joke. He pointed out that Guangxik hadn't changed at all. Sergeant Li then went on to say that having a higher rank was actually quite nice, and that stubborn mules like his former seniors became surprisingly obedient. As Kim listened, he couldn't help but smile at the remark. But Guangxik's reaction was quite the opposite. He became enraged at Sergeant Li's words. After that, Sergeant Li turned to Guangxik and asked if there was something he wanted to say. Guangxik then replied to Sergeant Li, saying that there was nothing he wished to say. Sergeant Li nodded and stating that he shouldn't speak. Later in the evening, Kim and Dongjin engaged in a conversation about Sergeant Li. There, Dongjin informed Kim that Sergeant Li Sungo had received a 2-rank promotion due to a special circumstance, and it turned out that Sergeant Li had achieved the highest grade in the advancement exams. However, the opportunity for a 2-rank promotion is no longer available. This change came about because a sergeant, who had received that promotion, ended up causing an accident in a dungeon. Sergeant Li Sungo happened to be one of the last individuals to benefit from this rule. Upon hearing this, Kim asked Dongjin if there were no longer any means of obtaining a special advancement. Dongjin responded by saying that there are exceptions, such as rescuing a civilian during an emergency or achieving remarkable feats in a monster hunt. However, it's crucial to note that these cases are highly subjective, and it's best for Kim to consider that this regulation no longer exists. Very few hunters have managed to advance through these means. Upon hearing this, Kim realized that only the commander held the ultimate authority in the end. Although he yearned for advancement, but he did not wish to endanger the civilians. However, the prevailing silence seemed unusual, considering reports of daily monster appearances at the border since the annihilation of the North Korean army. Kim then pondered that 2 days as a private were sufficient experience for him, and now he desired to advance. Dongjin reassured Kim, expressing confidence in his current performance, and anticipating his imminent promotion. Kim then secretly wished for a gate to appear out of the blue so that he can advance his rank. While Kim pondered over his thoughts, a loudspeaker resounded from the command and control center, declaring a pressing message, saying, "A significant number of middle bats have emerged at the oil reserve, posing an emergency situation." The announcement urgently instructed all hunters to gather at the oil reserve and promptly install the protective shield. Upon hearing this emergency alert, Kim experienced a surge of happiness, as he had been eagerly awaiting this very moment. The creatures that emerged at the oil reserve are called middle bats. These are bat-like monsters that are about the size of children and live in groups. While they may not be individually highly dangerous, they possess remarkable agility. What makes them particularly alarming is their ability to shoot fireballs from their mouths. Their presence at the oil reserve creates an urgent situation where the entire military camp could be at risk of destruction. The scene then quickly shifted to the location of the oil reserve, where 2 soldiers were stationed as guards. They were taken aback when they noticed a large number of middle bat monsters approaching. One of the soldiers became angry and attempted to shoot at the creatures. However, the other soldier intervened, cautioning him about the danger of firing near the oil reserve. The first soldier then questioned whether he was expected to simply stand by and watch the middle bat monsters. In response, the second soldier explained that since the bat monsters hadn't reached the oil reserve yet, he preferred to assess the situation for the time being. He believed that since the incident had been reported, someone would be sent to install a protective shield. The first soldier asked the second soldier, "What will happen if the monsters ignite the oil reserve before we set up the protective shield?" In response, the second soldier explained that if such an event occurred, the entire area would be devastated. Upon contemplating this dire scenario, both soldiers became frightened and pondered what actions they should take. While they wondered why the bat monster had appeared in that particular location, Kim suddenly arrived and assured them that he would divert their attention. Upon spotting Kim, both soldiers recognized him and exclaimed, "Isn't he the newcomer from the second company?" Seeing this, Kim began to approach the central bat monster. However, the soldiers promptly advised him to retreat as Kim was a novice and hadn't equipped any gear. Upon hearing this, Kim contemplated, "Who has time for equipment when the precious guests who will aid my progress are waiting for me?" Along with receiving the title the private who single-handedly stopped an emergency that could have wiped out the entire military camp, Kim would be able to claim all the experience points for himself. Kim then employed his demonic energy to ascertain if it would attract the bat monster, just as he had done in his previous battle. As anticipated, the bat monsters responded to his demonic energy. A smile appeared on Kim's face as he realized that they were all reacting to his demonic energy. Moments later, additional soldiers arrived at the scene. One of the soldiers paused, prompting the other to inquire about the reason for the halt. However, their astonishment grew when Sergeant Lee suddenly appeared behind them and demanded to know what they were doing. He urgently instructed them to stop daydreaming and immediately install the shield. One of the soldiers then informed him that Private Kim was currently engaged in a battle with the bat monsters. Upon hearing this, Sergeant Lee grew angry and exclaimed, "Private Kim is attracting all of their attention single-handedly, and the rest of you are just standing there?" Meanwhile, Kim was tearing apart the bat monster with his bare hands and wondered to himself, "It's taking too long to rip them apart one by one. Isn't there anything more useful?" At that moment, Sergeant Lee hurried towards Kim and commanded him to lower his stance and retreat. He also questioned Kim, "What on earth do you think you're doing without even wearing a bulletproof vest?" Upon hearing this, Kim felt that this hunt was entirely his and noticed an electric stick in Sergeant Lee's hand. In response, Kim unleashed his demonic energy on Sergeant Lee. As a result, Sergeant Lee's stomach became upset. Kim then approached Sergeant Lee and inquired about the situation, asking if everything is okay. Sergeant Lee assured Kim that he is fine. Kim then requested to borrow the electric stick for a moment, assuring Sergeant Lee not to be concerned as he would quickly return after taking care of the bat monsters. With a smile, Kim proceeded to eliminate the bat monsters using the electric stick. Sergeant Lee was astonished by the sight, witnessing Kim effortlessly overpowering the swarm of middle bats. As Kim engaged in combat, one of the soldiers noticed the boss bat monster soaring in the sky. As the boss monster began launching fireballs, Sergeant Lee commanded the other soldiers to shoot at the menacing creature, assuring them that he would bear any consequences. Upon hearing this, the soldiers readied their guns but quickly halted their actions when Kim leapt into the air to slay the boss monster. With a remark about the consequences of playing with fire, Kim used the electric stick to vanquish the boss monster. Everyone stood in shock, questioning amongst themselves, when did he manage to get up there? Who knows? More importantly, how high did he just jump? Following that, the soldier activated the protective shield, and now the troops were gathering the bodies of the middle bat monsters. During the gathering process, the captain approached Sergeant Lee and commended him for his good work. Curious about the origin of the bat monsters, the captain asked where they came from, as they hadn't detected any of them on the radar. In addition, the captain inquired who had barbecued the monsters so skillfully, as he could detect the scent of roasted bats. In response, Sergeant Lee stated that there were a total of 30 middle bat monsters. While conveying this information, Sergeant Lee couldn't help but think that Captain Junshik should have been on duty as the operations officer. Even if combat wasn't his specialty, it wasn't appropriate for an awakened executive to be absent during an emergency, and only show up after it had been resolved. Sergeant Lee speculated that Captain Junshik was probably observing the monster radar from the control center. Captain Junshik then inquired Sergeant Lee whether he was the one responsible for roasting the bats or not, and he emphasized that he would inform the battalion commander. Sergeant Lee responded to the captain, denying his involvement. Upon hearing this, the captain asked who could have done it, wondering if there was anyone else in the battalion as skilled as Sergeant Lee with an electric stick. Sergeant Lee then confidently asserted that not only were the bats defeated with the electric stick, but all 30 of them were vanquished by a single person. He urged the captain to report it accurately. The captain found it hard to believe what Sergeant Lee was saying and sought clarification, asking if the torn bats were also killed by the same person. At that moment, Private Kim approached from behind the captain and mentioned that he came to return the electric stick that Sergeant Lee had lent him. In addition, Private Kim asked if the electric stick was expensive because he accidentally broke it. The next day, Sergeant Lee asked Kim if he had re-enlisted or if he was a regressor or something else. Kim replied, no. Sergeant Lee then advised him not to do anything rash like the previous day ever again. He mentioned that Kim might have been lucky this time, but as a hunter, he never knew what could happen in the future. Kim was aware that the hunter was a special unit, different from the regular military in terms of divisions and the number of troops. The Hunter Corps consisted of only 4 battalions, each with significantly fewer soldiers compared to the regular military. Upon hearing Sergeant Lee's words, Kim thought to himself, obviously, not all the awakened keep re-enlisting, and wondered why Sergeant Lee was talking about it at that moment. Sergeant Lee then turned to Kim and asked if Kim knew how all of this was possible. Every single person within the Hunter Corps was awakened, though not everyone engaged in battle. There were officers specialized in administration, monster theory, tactics, and weapons research, but they too were awakened. In the Hunter Corps, one's advancement was solely based on their accomplishments and talents. Upon hearing this, Kim thought he was called to the battalion commander's office first thing in the morning, expecting some good news. However, it seemed like an information session instead. Kim realized that keeping his expectations low would have been wiser. At that moment, Sergeant Lee addressed Kim's anticipation, questioning if Kim expected something since being called to the battalion commander's office. He encouraged Kim to look forward, as someone special would be visiting their battalion today. This was because Kim had defeated the most monsters in the 104th Division. In the next scene, a high-ranking officer approaches the 104th Division in a car. He is the division commander of the Hunter Corps named Du. Everyone from the 2nd Battalion salutes the division commander, and there is a tense atmosphere due to his arrival. The division commander then shakes hands with Sergeant Lee and commends him for calmly handling the situation the previous day, praising his good work. Sergeant Lee thanks the division commander for the recognition. As Kim witnesses this interaction, he contemplates the strength possessed by the 2-star officers from the Hunter Corps. While Kim is lost in his thoughts, the division commander approaches him and asks if he is Kim. Kim respectfully responds with "Yes, sir," and introduces himself as Private Kim Min-jun. As Kim shook hands with the division commander, he noticed that the commander had a strong grip. The division commander then instructed everyone to relax. Shortly after, the division commander asked if they had figured out which gate the middle bats had come from. The battalion commander responded, "Yes, sir. It is located on a hill approximately 1.2 kilometers north of our battalion. We have restricted access to the area and are currently investigating the gate's origin." The division commander then instructed them, once it's confirmed, inform the division commander's office directly. The division commander then inquired about the issue with the radar. One of the soldiers explained that the alarm didn't go off until the middle bats approached the battalion. It was confirmed that there was no equipment malfunction, but they are currently investigating the presence of any blind spots. The division commander then stated, if it wasn't an equipment malfunction, it might be due to the sheer numbers. He instructed them to report it to the divisional ordnance office and set up 2 additional radars. The soldiers responded with a respectful "Yes, sir." Afterwards, the division commander commended Kim on his courage displayed yesterday, acknowledging that his initial response was commendable. However, the commander expressed the belief that Kim should have exercised more caution. Moreover, the commander advised Kim not to forget to bring his equipment in the future. Kim apologized, contemplating how disastrous the situation would have been if he had brought the equipment and caused the battalion to go up in flames. Upon hearing Kim's apology, the division commander reassured him that it was merely a jest and there was no need to apologize. Curious about the rumors, the commander inquired if it was true that Kim single-handedly eliminated 30 enemy combatants. Kim proudly responded with a "Yes, sir." The division commander praised Kim for his swift reaction, highlighting that had he not acted promptly, the oil reserve could have exploded. The commander expressed great satisfaction with Kim's performance, and, as a token of appreciation, decided to promote him. The division commander congratulated Kim on his well-deserved promotion, explaining that under normal circumstances, there would be several procedural steps involved. However, recognizing Kim's exceptional achievement, the commander emphasized the importance of promptly rewarding a soldier who has accomplished something extraordinary. Kim expressed gratitude towards the division commander for the recognition and the small gift that came along with the promotion. The division commander then instructed the battalion commander to grant Kim an immediate vacation for 3 days and 2 nights. Upon hearing this, Kim was surprised by how quickly he would get the opportunity to rest. He felt joyous knowing that he would also be able to enjoy a vacation. It made him realize that military life was becoming even more exciting. Later, Kim was accompanied by a fellow soldier who pointed out that they hadn't had much time to talk since Kim had just been transferred. Despite that, Kim had already accomplished a lot, and thanks to him, the soldier had also received recognition. The soldier mentioned that it was Kim's first time going home since enlisting and asked what Kim planned to do during the time off. Kim felt happy about the prospect. After Kim left the Hunter Corps, he headed to the PC room to play the game Dungeon Power Fighter. He had no choice but to go there because if he were to go home, he would have to enter a restricted area with no internet connection. To avoid wasting time on travel, he decided to spend the next 3 days and 2 nights in the PC room. As Kim was about to enter the PC room, he overheard 2 people talking about going somewhere. One of them asked the other if he had gone out there again. The other person replied, "Don't even mention it, bro. Those soldiers are so strict. It's not like I was going into that cave." I just wanted to pick some pine mushrooms in the area. Why are they stopping me? I've already obtained permission from the owner of the mountain, and even deposited money. The first person responded saying, Cham went there before it was completely restricted. He said it smelled toxic all over the mountain, and that he had a headache for a few days afterward. You're going to be in trouble if you go there. The second person insisted that he would just wear a mask or something when he goes. At that moment, Kim approached them and asked where the place was located. Initially, both of them were taken aback, but they quickly agreed to take Kim to the desired location. Kim expressed gratitude for the ride. However, one of them informed Kim that they wouldn't be able to proceed any further because the soldiers would intercept them. They then questioned Kim about the rumor that he could resolve the issue on the mountain. Kim confirmed it, stating that the restriction should be lifted by tomorrow, allowing them to access the mountain again. While discussing this, both of them noticed Kim's rank and advised him to be cautious before departing. After their departure, Kim spotted a mountain emitting sinister demonic energy. Intrigued, Kim made the spontaneous decision to head towards the mountain instead of going to the PC room. A smile adorned Kim's face as the scent of the demonic energy reached his nostrils. As Kim approached, he realized the heavy security presence near the entrance of the mountain but comparatively lax security near the dungeon itself. Sensing an opportunity, Kim tapped into his own demonic energy and discreetly affected both guards. Being a private first class, Kim wished to remain unnoticed. Shortly after Kim's intervention, both guards suddenly experienced stomach aches. Overwhelmed by their condition, one guard conveyed to the other, "It's not like anyone can come here. Let's just take care of our business and return. It should be alright if we're gone for 5 minutes." With that, they left the area. In that moment, Kim ventured into the mountain, but to his surprise, there were no monsters in sight. However, he couldn't help but wonder why the demonic energy felt so dense in this place. Curiosity piqued, Kim decided to absorb the demonic energy. As he absorbed the energy, his demonic energy stat gradually increased, 1 point at a time. Before long, a notification window appeared before Kim's eyes, informing him that his demonic energy had reached the threshold, resulting in an enhancement of his corruption skill. Another notification followed, revealing that he had unlocked the Night Walker skill. Overwhelmed with joy, Kim couldn't help but smile at the news. Upon receiving the notification window, Kim's heart fills with excitement as he realizes his luck. He has been granted not only free demonic energy but also a highly useful skill. The skill in question is Night Walker, a unique ability that allows him to summon a familiar in the form of a shadow. Having extensively utilized this skill during his time in Isgard, Kim is intimately familiar with its mechanics and intricacies. The Night Walker, with its specialty in stealthy assassinations from the concealment of shadows, proves to be an invaluable asset. However, Kim understands that maintaining the summon requires a regular supply of demonic energy. Kim summons the Night Walker, and a diminutive figure emerges before him. However, as Kim sets eyes on the small familiar, a perplexed expression takes over his face, and he can't help but wonder aloud, what in the world is this? Could it be a consequence of the dimensional travel penalty? Or perhaps my demonic energy stat is too low? A sense of disappointment washes over Kim as he contemplates the situation. The Night Walker's small size appears underwhelming, leaving him uncertain about its potential and effectiveness. He muses, how on earth am I supposed to utilize this feeble, tiny creature that seems like it would wither away at the slightest hint of sunlight? However, in a moment of realization, Kim's expression shifts as he exclaims, "But wait. It may be small in size, but it possesses a remarkable ability to hide within the shadows." The scene seamlessly transitions to the Hunter Corps Training Center, where Kim has just returned from his vacation. As soon as people catch sight of Kim, they flock to him, eager to hear about his remarkable achievement. Among the crowd, a voice exclaims, "It's Kim, the hunter who has achieved the fastest advancement to date." Intrigued by the news, everyone surrounds Kim, their curiosity piqued. They inquire about the details of his impressive feat, eager to learn from his experience. Amidst the buzzing crowd, someone mentions that the division commander was so impressed with Kim's accomplishment that he personally granted him the vacation. Not only that, but the division commander also presented Kim with a badge to commemorate his remarkable achievement. Kim stands amidst the attention, basking in the recognition and admiration of his peers, while the training center buzzes with excitement. While amidst the bustling crowd, Kim's eyes catch sight of Dong-jin, and he approaches him with a warm smile. Kim presents Dong-jin with a bottle of moisturizer, knowing how much his friend values skincare. Dong-jin's face lights up with delight upon receiving the thoughtful gift, appreciating Kim's considerate gesture. In that heartwarming moment, Gwangshik arrives on the scene, interrupting their exchange. With a touch of sarcasm, Gwangshik remarks, "Look at this touching friendship. It's not like Kim was dispatched overseas or something." His words carry a hint of both jest and admiration. After his comment, Gwangshik turns his attention to Kim and asks if he has brought what was requested. Kim reaches into his bag and hands Gwangshik 3 packs of coffee mix. However, it becomes apparent that this isn't what Gwangshik had originally asked for, as a look of mild disappointment crosses his face. Shortly after, one of Kim's seniors approaches him, excitement evident in their voice. They share with Kim that while passing by the administrative office, they happened to catch a glimpse of the list of candidates for the advancement examinations, and to their surprise, Kim's name was on it. The news spreads among the gathered seniors, creating a buzz of conversation and intrigue. Another senior, taken aback by the revelation, exclaims, "What? Didn't the application period end before Kim was transferred here?" The timing seems incongruous, leading them to question whether the division commander had a hand in securing Kim's inclusion on the list. The perplexing nature of the situation only deepens their curiosity, as the pieces of the puzzle fail to fit neatly together. Absorbing all the discussions and speculation, Kim takes a moment to address everyone gathered around him. He reveals, with a hint in his voice, "Actually, it was the training commander who made me a special offer." Curiosity piqued, his seniors eagerly listen as Kim proceeds to explain the details of the offer, taking them through the entire journey from its inception to the present moment. As Kim's story unfolds, a sense of astonishment settles over his peers. They realize that Kim chose to come to this training center with a specific purpose in mind. It's to start taking advancement exams a year earlier. They connect the dots and understand that, considering Kim's previous promotion to private first class, he must be aiming to take the advancement exam to become a corporal. The revelation astounds them, leading one of his seniors to exclaim, "If you manage to pass, Kim, you truly are a crazy guy." Kim's senior then interjects, adding that those participating in the advancement exams this Saturday will undergo an orientation and specialized weapons training the following day, indicating that Kim will have to endure an additional day of intense preparation. With that, the senior departs, leaving Kim to ponder the nature of the upcoming specialty weapon training. The scene then shifted to a classroom setting, where an instructor addresses the gathered hunters. The instructor announces that they will undergo a quick orientation session tomorrow regarding the advancement examinations. He emphasized the importance of concentration and remind those who have previously taken the exams not to be distracted, urging them to focus for the sake of the first-time participants. The instructor proceeds to explain that the Hunter Corps advancement examinations consist of 2 parts, a written exam and a practical exam. The written part, he revealed, is at a basic level, likening it to a driving test in terms of difficulty. Kim realizes that the written exam may serve as a foundation, but it is the practical exam that holds the utmost significance. The instructor emphasizes that the practical exam will assess the hunter's stat test, specialty weapons proficiency, and ability to handle monsters. Confident in his abilities, Kim assures himself that he will pass the exam. However, his thoughts turn to the rewards and perks he might receive for achieving a perfect score. Curiosity sparks within him as he ponders the potential benefits that await those who excel in the examinations, eager to discover the additional advantages that may accompany his success. In the next scene, the training session commenced with the focus on the specialty weapon. The instructor addressed the group, emphasizing, "Attention, privates and privates first class. Please refrain from selecting any weapons other than swords." Following that, the instructor turned his attention to the corporals, instructing them to retrieve their personal weapons and proceed to a designated training area. With an air of authority, he explained, "Corporals, kindly gather your personal weapons and head over to the training zone assigned to you." Returning his attention to the entire group, the instructor declared, "Today, we will be delving into the fundamentals of swordsmanship, drawing from the esteemed Hunter Corps Combat Manual." However, he cautioned them against blindly adhering to the guidelines alone, stating, "It is essential to remember that simply following the guidelines will not yield substantial results. You must learn to adapt the Hunter Corps swordsmanship techniques as a solid foundation and tailor them to suit your individual styles." Understanding the significance of mastering the basics, the instructor encouraged the recruits, asserting, "Since the fundamentals play a vital role, I want all of you to closely observe my movements." With grace and expertise, he proceeded to demonstrate the basic principles of swordsmanship to the eager trainees. Upon witnessing the instructor's demonstration of the basic swordsmanship movement, Kim immediately grasped the essence of why this particular training was deemed as specialty weapons training. It became evident to him that relying solely on rifles would prove futile in combating the formidable monsters they faced. Motivated by this realization, the entire group eagerly embarked on their swordsmanship training. As Kim commenced his own training, he couldn't help but ponder the potential superiority of his guardian's swordsmanship techniques. However, he understood that success would ultimately hinge on how effectively he applied and adapted those techniques to his own style. With these thoughts in mind, Kim devoted himself to mastering the intricacies of swordsmanship. In a surprising turn of events, everyone was taken aback by Kim's remarkable display of swordsmanship. The sheer fluidity and finesse of his movements left the group in shock. This caught the attention of the instructor, prompting him to interrupt the training and summon Kim to the podium. Making his way towards the podium, Kim's anticipation grew as he wondered what the instructor had in store for him. The instructor addressed the group, remarking on his observations, "Based on what I have witnessed, it is evident that your movements still lack grace and fluidity." He then encouraged the trainees to take inspiration from Kim's exemplary performance, stating, "Take a cue from Private First Class Kim Min-jun." Kim, humbled by the instructor's words, proceeded to demonstrate his swordsmanship movement to the entire group. Exhausted from his efforts, Kim's fatigue was alleviated when the instructor approached him, presenting a chocolate packet as a token of recognition and commending him for his exceptional work. In that moment, Dong Jin approached Kim and praised his exceptional swordsmanship demonstration. He kindly asked Kim if it would be alright for him to observe and provide feedback on his own form during their break. Curious, Kim inquired if Dong Jin was requesting assistance from him. Dong Jin then explained that the sword was his specialty weapon, but he still struggled when it came to fighting monsters. He sought Kim's guidance. With a warm smile, Kim assured Dong Jin that if he needed help, Kim would gladly offer as much assistance as Dong Jin desired. Dong Jin proceeded to showcase his swordsmanship movements while Kim savored a piece of chocolate. As Kim indulged in the treat, he pondered that he could discern Dong Jin's earnest training efforts from the way he moved. Dong Jin's movements were essentially on par with the standard of the Hunter Corps' swordsmanship. The issue wasn't Dong Jin's technique but rather his lack of confidence. Kim recognized that boosting Dong Jin's confidence happened to be his area of expertise, yet he believed the time wasn't quite right. However, when the opportunity arose, Kim vowed to transform Dong Jin into a top-tier hunter. In the previous video, we witnessed Kim's astounding swordsmanship that left everyone in shock, and the instructor acknowledged his talents. While praising Kim's performance, the instructor also pointed out areas for improvement. Dongjin approached Kim for help in enhancing his fighting abilities, and Kim willingly agreed to assist him. Kim's goal is to boost Dongjin's confidence and eventually transform him into a top-tier hunter when the opportune moment arises. Today is the long-awaited day for the advancement examination to commence. In the dorm, people are taking a break from their preparation, engaging in various activities. Some enjoy watching TV and admiring their favorite idol's music. Others find relaxation in playing basketball, while a few opt for board games. Suddenly, an announcement catches everyone by surprise, instructing all hunters scheduled for the advancement examinations to proceed immediately to the military training ground. However, Kim Minjun remains unfazed, standing with unwavering determination, fully prepared to face whatever challenges await him in the upcoming examination. He knows that today is the day he will achieve the rank of corporal. Under the shining sun, the young examinees gather at the military training grounds, where 2nd Lieutenant Kim Kielman serves as the exam instructor. He introduces himself as their guide throughout the exam and inquires about the personnel count for each company. Shortly after, a bus arrives, indicating that they will be taken to another location for the exam. With everyone boarding the bus in an orderly manner, the 2nd Lieutenant informs them that the advancement exam will be held at the 105th Division. During their journey, he advises them to review their practice questions to prepare. As they travel, Kim discreetly eavesdrops on a conversation between two examinees. The topic revolves around the 4th Battalion also participating in the advancement exams, creating excitement as they anticipate seeing female participants after a long time. One examinee eagerly looks forward to showcasing his weapons proficiency in front of the girls, speculating about the possibility of exchanging contact information. Meanwhile, Kim listens and smiles, fully aware that they will give their best efforts, but he remains utterly confident in his own abilities. As the bus continues on the road, they are treated to breathtaking sights. Upon reaching their destination at the 104th Division, the unmistakable signs of a military establishment with perimeters and tight security become evident. The scene then shifted to examination room number 7, where all the examinees appeared to be done with their written examinations. The invigilator announced the results, declaring that everyone had passed except for Cho Jianwoo. Unfortunately, Cho was the same guy who had been boasting about impressing the girls, and now he was embarrassed as everyone laughed at his failure. He nervously started sweating, realizing that he wouldn't have the chance to show off his skills anymore. Outside the examination room, Cho's friends teased and bullied him for failing an exam that was supposedly easier than a driver's license test. On the other hand, Kim Minjun was entirely focused on his own world, enjoying himself and paying no attention to others. As the examinees lined up, it was clear that the time had come for the physical exam. Along the way, a familiar face appeared, a blue-haired woman who hadn't been seen in a while. She was staring at the examinees as they walked away. As the examinees entered a building at the 105th Division, an event was underway inside the auditorium. A group of soldiers stood as the speech giver, Lieutenant Colonel Lee Kielju, applauded the examinees for their journey thus far. He was the man in charge of the advancement exam and explained that their objective was not just to find those worthy of promotions, but also to foster friendly competition between 3 different divisions. Kim Minjun listened to the speech, feeling a bit sleepy as he was eager for the exam to begin. He was eager to advance and become a corporal. However, Lieutenant Colonel Lee continued, discussing how some members were attending the examination based on special exceptions. In that moment, Kim's name was called, but he wasn't alone. Lieutenant Lee also mentioned the blue-haired girl, Private Sun Yunseo, praising both of them as exceptional hunters who had enlisted a year ago. Meanwhile, Kim couldn't hide his happiness upon discovering that he wasn't the only one receiving special attention. As Lieutenant Colonel Lee continued speaking, most people seemed disinterested, except for a group of keen observers. They engaged in a discussion about the special exceptions and how applying to the front lines could lead to such opportunities. One of them mentioned how many had rejected the offer to join the 104th Division, regretting their decision now that they saw Kim's success. Another pointed out how Kim had already achieved the rank of Private First Class, making him an admirable figure among the examinees. The excitement among the examinees grew, and all eyes were on Kim everywhere he went. People were looking at him, impressed by his exceptional skills. However, Kim remained unfazed by the attention and paid no mind to the glances from others. As he stood there, Kim couldn't help but notice that Sun Yunseo was looking at him. Their eyes met, and for a moment, there was a hint of shyness in her expression as she quickly averted her gaze. Kim, trying to play it cool, pretended not to have noticed anything, even though he had caught her looking at him. Eventually, Lieutenant Lee encouraged everyone to do their best and left the place. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as the advancement exam was about to begin. Following that, Captain Jong Senkyo takes the stage to announce the start of the strength, agility, and stamina test. The first challenge is the strength test, where the examinees must push back an examiner standing in front of them within 1 minute. Achieving a 10-meter backward movement will earn them the highest score on a 100-point scale. The examinees are called up one by one, with the examiner positioned in the 0-meter squares on the ground. The first to attempt the test is Private Jin Hyuk from the 103rd Division, but he fails to score 40 points and is immediately disqualified. Many others try their luck, but they also end up being disqualified during their attempts. Eventually, it's Sun Yunseo's turn, the blue-haired girl who received a special exception. Surprisingly, she manages to move the strong examiner 5 meters backward, leaving everyone impressed. Some admire her beauty, while others discuss her being the daughter of the division commander. Kim Min-jun, however, remains uninterested, but he reflects on how both he and Sun Yunseo received special exceptions. After Sun Yunseo's turn, it was finally Kim Min-jun's chance to demonstrate his incredible strength. Confidently announcing his arrival as a private first class, he stepped forward with a clear plan in mind. He knew he had to be cautious not to go all out like he did with the redstone, as it could prove fatal for the examiner. However, he also wanted to push him past the 10-meter mark to potentially earn a special bonus. Positioning both of his hands front and center with all 5 fingers open, Kim Min-jun prepared to push with all his might. The examiner was sent flying, a look of shock and disbelief on his face. No one had ever managed to push him this far in his entire life. The crowd was left in awe, their faces a mix of envy and fear. Thankfully, the examiner managed to land on his feet, although he was visibly displeased. His impact with the ground shattered wood chips beneath him. The crowd, including the invigilator, was taken aback by what they had just witnessed. Kim Min-jun had secured a perfect score of 100 points, an achievement no one else had expected, not even Sun Yunseo, the blue-haired girl. Kim walked away with a smile, sensing her gaze upon him, but to his surprise there were no bonus points awarded. As Kim Min-jun wasn't the last examinee, there were more yet to be disqualified. One girl was sent away crying after failing to push the examiner even 1 meter, leading to her disqualification. As the strength test concluded, the other examines were left puzzled, wondering why it seemed so challenging. The focus shifted to the next phase, the agility test, which commenced without any breaks. Those who didn't make the cut in the previous test were sent away, their disappointment evident as they walked away in lines, reflecting on their own performances. As the staff prepared for the agility stat test, they brought in new equipment, including a big green net, and a huge minigun that resembled an anti-tank weapon. The examiners were both fascinated and terrified, wondering if they would have to dodge real bullets after exerting so much strength in the previous test. However, the invigilator lightened the mood by revealing that they would be dodging rubber bullets instead. Although they were not real bullets, being shot from an anti-tank weapon meant they would still sting like the real deal. The invigilator instructs them to dodge everything, and immediately, they start to feel nervous. This time, the stakes were higher, and the consequences of making a mistake were much more painful. While everyone was feeling anxious, Kim found the situation amusing and couldn't help but smirk at how interesting things had become. The man operating the gun seemed determined to make things challenging for them. The objective was simple: dodge the bullets for 1 whole minute to achieve the perfect score. However, this meant enduring the onslaught within the designated area inside the net. Adding to their fear, the examinees realized that the examination could also be passed by enduring the hits for 1 minute. If they could withstand the barrage of bullets within the net for the entire duration, they would pass with flying colors. However, those who exited the safety net in less than 30 seconds or suffered severe injuries would be immediately disqualified. The pressure was on, and the examinees knew they had to be both agile and tough to succeed. As the test was about to begin, Kim heard a familiar voice from behind. Turning in surprise, he saw his homie, Private First Class Dong Jin, smiling and waving at him. Kim was taken aback. He had no clue that Dong Jin had passed the strength test. Dong Jin playfully teased him, asking why he looked so surprised. Kim denied it, even though he secretly had doubts about Dong Jin's performance. As expected, Dong Jin reveals to Kim that all the private first-class members have already taken the advancement exam once before, so they were somewhat accustomed to the format. The only challenge for them was meeting the higher overall score standard, which had been the reason for Dong Jin's previous failures. He shares a valuable tip with Kim, explaining that the rubber bullets move at the same speed as real ones, so relying solely on eyesight to dodge them won't work. Instead, it's crucial to predict the bullet's trajectory and react accordingly as they fly out of the gun at the same speed as regular bullets. Soon the bullets began hitting people, and the military training grounds echoed with screams of pain and panic. One unfortunate guy took a direct hit to his skull, causing it to crack open and leaving him bleeding and in agony on the ground. The severity of the injury led to his immediate disqualification, and an examiner rushed to escort him to the infirmary for medical attention. Observing the numerous disqualifications during the stat tests, Kim realized that the pass rate was low for a reason. These tests may be challenging, but they were nothing compared to the terror of facing real monsters out there. Kim understood the reasoning behind the difficulty, considering the potential damage that monsters could inflict. It emphasized the importance of rigorous training for hunters to be adequately prepared for the dangers they would encounter. Soon, another examinee got disqualified, but this time it was because he chose to run out of the safety net to avoid getting hit by the bullets. The invigilator expressed his annoyance, calling them cowards and emphasizing that this test was relatively easy compared to the sergeant advancement exam happening in the adjacent room. It seemed like a stark reminder of the intensity of the challenges that awaited them in their journey to become top-tier hunters. As disappointed, nervous, and sad examinees walked away from their tests, it was evident that the challenges were indeed tough. However, the anticipation grew as someone intriguing was about to step up. It was none other than Private Sun Yunseo, the blue-haired girl. With confidence, she approached the safety net, cracking her fingers in preparation for the task ahead. Her presence added a new spark of excitement, and everyone watched eagerly to see how she would tackle the test. As the bullets came flying, the crowd watched in anticipation, slightly nervous for the girl's safety. However, they soon realized they had underestimated her. With remarkable skill and agility, she effortlessly dodged the bullets, showcasing her prowess far beyond their expectations. 9 seconds had passed, and she continued to dodge, jump, dash, and dance, gracefully avoiding the onslaught of bullets in an impressive display of agility. The crowd was in shock of her exceptional skill. They couldn't believe how remarkably she performed. As the clock reached 57 seconds, even the invigilator couldn't help but applaud her for dodging everything flawlessly. Finally, the 60 seconds were over, and Sun Yunseo had not been hit even a single time, achieving a perfect score to everyone's amazement. As she walked past the crowd, everyone was either staring at her or trying not to, completely impressed by her amazing skill. Passing by Kim, she gave him a rather intense look, leaving him puzzled about the reason behind it. Meanwhile, the rest of the examinees stood there, wondering if there was something more between these two. After all, why would she be looking at him like that if there weren't? The curiosity among them was evident. With a slow, intense step, she locked her gaze into Kim's eyes, leaving him pondering what she might want from him. Fortunately, the tension was interrupted by the invigilator's announcement, signaling it was now Kim's turn to face the bullets, or dodge them. He swiftly turned away from her and proceeded towards the safety net. Yet she continued to watch him intently as she walked away. The air was filled with intrigue and curiosity. Kim couldn't help but use his peripherals to sneak a glance back at her, feeling slightly uncomfortable as she continued to stare at him. As he stood before the safety net, he couldn't shake the curiosity about what she might want. Was she expecting a compliment? It puzzled him since they didn't even know each other well. Lost in thought, Kim failed to notice that the gun was already primed and ready. Startled by the sound of the chamber going off, he instinctively dodged the bullet, avoiding it like a seasoned pro. Sun couldn't help but be impressed by his swift reaction. It seemed like she saw him as a rival, but his skills surpassed her expectations by far. As Kim stood with his hand still in his pocket, he pondered the idea of showcasing his true capabilities to Sun, wanting to demonstrate the significant difference between their skill levels. With his hands casually tucked in his pockets, Kim then skillfully dodged the bullets with ease, leaving everyone in shock at his incredible display. He didn't rely on jumps or dashes, just a slight curve of his body was enough to evade each bullet with precision. As he moved closer to the gun, the bullets seemed to graze past him, impressing everyone, especially his blue-haired rival. Her surprise and nervousness were evident, while Kim remained composed, wearing a confident smile. He effortlessly dodged bullets, all the while keeping his eyes fixed on her, and a sense of amusement filled him as he witnessed her reaction. He was undeniably dominating the situation, leaving a lasting impact on his rival's soul. After seeing all of that, the invigilator was left dumbfounded by Kim's remarkable performance that he forgot to check the time. It turned out that the gun had been firing for 1 minute and 10 seconds before he called a ceasefire, putting an end to the bullet hell surrounding Kim. To no one's surprise, Kim received a perfect score on the agility test for his extraordinary feat. As the gun stopped firing, Kim stood just 2 steps away from the barrel, having truly shown off his incredible skill. While he might not have impressed the ladies, he had definitely left everyone in scare. The invigilator was at a loss for words and decided to move on to the next contestant. The agility test was now completed, and it was already late in the afternoon after a short break. Soon after that, the rest of the remaining examinees were called onto the grounds as they stood in front of a big blue portal gate. The invigilator told them that they did great on the agility test as he was sweating profusely from the heat. He told them that they would commence the stamina stat test now. The stamina stat test was the last out of the 3, and it was way too simple. Everyone had entered the dungeon through the big blue portal gate, and it was time to start marching inside of the empty transforming dungeon. The test was straightforward. The examinees had to race inside the empty transforming dungeon, with a time limit of 40 minutes. They needed to reach the turning point where the examiner would stamp their hands before time ran out. However, to add a challenge, they were kept in the dark about the distance to the turning point. It would be quite the trek to complete within the given time. As Kim marched with the other examinees, he pondered if they were all pacing themselves since the march had just begun. He considered the idea of running ahead, but hesitated, unsure if it would cause any trouble. The slow pace of marching was boring him, and he wished for something more exciting. Suddenly, he felt a tap on his shoulder, and the blue-haired girl rushed past him. She looked back at him, making him wonder about her intentions. It became apparent that this was now a race, and everyone else joined in. The long march turned into a thrilling race, and the 40-minute time limit added excitement. Kim couldn't resist the challenge and felt a surge of excitement as he decided not to hold back in this competition. The blue-haired girl then dashes off ahead, taking the lead in the race as she looks back at our hero, challenging him to keep up. He immediately realizes what it is and bursts out laughing, knowing that she is challenging him. The game is afoot, and the race has started. It's going to be a trek to the finish line, and Kim has no intentions of losing. He then quickens his pace, his feet moving faster than any regular soldier's. With determination in his eyes, he breaks into a run, leaving the competition behind as mere spectators. They can only watch in awe, unable to match his speed. Shouts and calls to wait for them fill the air from behind, but he remains focused on a singular goal: to reach the end ahead of the blue-haired girl. Amid the rocky terrain and the shroud of fog obscuring visibility, the blue-haired girl remains resolute in her determination to win. The challenging environment doesn't deter her or anyone else in the race. Suddenly, a sense of presence behind her catches her attention. But it's not a looming threat, it's just Kim, wearing a confident grin as he effortlessly catches up. With a smile, he playfully teases her, hinting that this challenge is well within his capabilities. Puzzled by his words, she inquires about his remark, only to receive a light-hearted response that he was simply talking to himself. He surges ahead, leaving her behind with a mix of bewilderment and amazement. As he speeds ahead, laughter bubbles out of him. He can't resist showing off his extraordinary pace and skill. Her momentum halted. A wave of trepidation washes over her as she watches Kim's figure disappear into the distance, her breath heavy and rapid. She finds herself grappling with the enigma that is Kim's prowess. As her racing mind searches for answers, memories surface, taking her back to a pivotal moment. Leaving the battalion commander's office and walking into a swarm of reporters. Here, the curtain lifts on Sun Yunseo's untold story, her past finally coming to light. Initially taken aback by the overwhelming attention from the press, she feels unfamiliar with the world's spotlight on her. Reporters barrage her with questions, probing into her meeting with the battalion commander and questioning the veracity of rumors surrounding her lineage as a general's daughter with exceptional stats. Faced with this unexpected media frenzy, she grapples with the weight of responsibility resting upon her shoulders. As she walked away from the crowd of reporters, she could hear them whispering about how she was a nepotism baby but that she was still a normal person and not too arrogant. They didn't know much about her. As she was walking away, she heard them talking about how they assumed she was going to be the best recruit in the enlistment year. That moment, she removed her jacket and mused about Kim. Thoughts swirled around his astonishing feat of shattering the redstone in a single strike, a display of strength that both surprised and impressed her. She couldn't help but wonder about him and his story. Then, the scene changes to a training center. There's an announcer announcing that the white team emerged victorious. Sun Yunseo, dressed in her training clothes, stood on a high platform, waving a blue flag. Despite sweat on her face, she had a smile. Afterward, she stepped down from the platform and rejoined her team to celebrate. The announcer was really excited, shouting that the white team managed to grab the blue team's flag in just 3 minutes and 34 seconds, setting a new record. He asked the white team to take a 10-minute break. On the other side, the blue team huddled around their trainer, while another trainer joined the white team. She informed the girls that their performance had set a new training center record, giving them a chance to rest. The girls were happy about their achievement and cheered for their teammate Sun Yunseo, who had won the training. Even though she was blushing and not great at taking compliments, a little smile appeared on her face in this proud moment. Later, we're brought back to the girls' locker room. There, the women are engaged in different activities. Most of them have gotten changed, while others read books, fold their clothes, and use their phones. Suddenly, a short-haired blonde girl slams the door open as she enters the room. She came in and announced that the record they set for capture the flag in the morning was broken in the afternoon training. She seemed worried and then began to recount how quick the new record was, which stood at 1 minute and 2 seconds. The girls were confused. How could such a record even be made? It turns out it was none other than Kim, who had broken it. This immediately alerted Sun Yunseo. She remembered who it was, as she had been bested by him without much difficulty. In the girls' shower area, things seemed pretty chill. However, Kim's name is on everyone's lips at this point. This was when he almost aced the shooting with ICM bullets, and Sun Yunseo was getting fed up with his non-stop record-breaking feats. The blonde girl just wouldn't stop talking about Kim, whether it was during activities or training. Our girl had reached her limit. The chatter continued even at midnight when they were supposed to be asleep. The blonde girl kept talking about how Kim managed to take down a hound, which was as big as an elephant, inside the dungeon. Sun Yunseo finally snapped and told her to hush and go to sleep, but the blonde girl just wouldn't be quiet. It's like she was in her own world while talking about our hero, and Sun simply wanted some peace and quiet. After a while, she drifted into a sleep that led her into dreams of her past. In her dream, a serious figure was busy tying up their bootlaces. Those hands were weathered, the hands of a seasoned soldier. The figure had a sturdy build, the physique of someone who had been through numerous battles. A young girl came forward. It was none other than Sun herself, back when she was just a child. The man was her father, a Hunter Corps veteran. She admired her dad immensely, and in this dream, she stood gazing up at him, against a backdrop that was completely white and devoid of color. All the vibrant colors seemed to be centered around that man. He was a tremendous source of joy for Sun, and his smile brought her immense happiness. He affectionately patted her head, ruffling her hair with a fatherly touch before heading out through the doorway. She looked at him with longing, as if she wished he wouldn't go. At that instant, a small smile curved on her lips, revealing that she had found her life's purpose. Determination filled her heart. She was going to become strong, just like her father. Her aim was clear. She would ensure the safety of everyone and forge a powerful legacy as a skilled soldier within the Hunter Corps. The scene then transitions to the battalion commander's office. He praises her incredible training performance over the past 4 weeks. He invited her into his office to have an important conversation and asked if that would be okay with her. She expressed gratitude for the opportunity and inquired about the topic of discussion. He inquired about her preferred division for application and explained that due to her exceptional scores, she had the freedom to choose any division she wished. It felt like she was in a shop for choosing, but instead of bottles of wine, it was military divisions on display. She was facing a tough decision, like choosing between different drinks. The battalion commander was eager to know her choice and urged her to share. Should she stay close to her father's division or go somewhere else? She finally mentioned the name, Kim Min-jun, which puzzled the battalion commander. Seeking clarity, she explained further. With a deep breath, she asked which division Kim Min-jun had applied to, as that was the one she wanted to choose. Finally, we return to the race as Sun Yunseo runs, splashing her feet through the muddy water. She remembered that she didn't apply to this division just to engage in childish competitions with her fellow recruits. As she tries to gain more momentum, she realizes that she provoked him because she was a little upset. Perhaps that is why he was mad and showing off. In her mind, she keeps seeing him as the main rival during this assessment. He bested her each time they competed, first during the strength stat test and then during the agility test. She realized her errors. Her jealousy had gotten the better of her. So as she decides to run faster, she notes that she will apologize to him first. The goal is clear. She wants to become stronger. She never intended to become number one. She came here to get stronger without relying on her father's help, but making enemies wasn't part of the plan. She knew she encountered someone incredibly skilled here, and instead of being her rival, he should be someone she learns from. She was done acting childishly. As she reached the turning point stamp validation booth, Sun Yunseo noticed Kim had already arrived, and the stamp guy was telling him to move along. He was wasting time just standing there. However, he stood there on purpose, showing her he got there first. Running past her, he said he almost fell asleep waiting for her, teasing her. Embarrassment turned into rage. He had really ticked her off. She yelled at the invigilator to stamp her quickly because she wanted to rejoin the race. Dashing away from the turning point, she decided to ignore the apologies. The sight of Kim's face enraged her so much that revenge was all she could think of. Unfortunately for her, when they exited the portal, everyone was utterly exhausted. But for Kim, this was just another day's fun. He seemed to breeze through it effortlessly. The invigilator announced the results. Private First Class Kim Min-jun had taken the lead, completing in 29 minutes. Meanwhile, Private Sun Yun-sil, the blue-haired girl, followed in second place with 32 minutes. The invigilator praised Kim, acknowledging his perfect scores in every stat test. Kim thanked him, simply glad to have participated. That marked the end of the stat test. All successful hunters were promised a satisfying meal, followed by regrouping for more assessments on the training grounds. Despite their exhaustion, the hunters responded with an enthusiastic acknowledgement, their determination overriding their fatigue. The hunters grabbed their jackets from the ground, signaling that it was time to head back for lunch. Our hero briefly locked eyes with the blue-haired woman. Instead of acting mature, Kim playfully stuck out his tongue and taunted her. She wasn't annoyed anymore. At this point, she was just embarrassed. He walked away from her. Dong Jin, a familiar face, approached him and mentioned that he was being rude, with the girls still watching. Interestingly, her embarrassment had turned into amusement, as she let out a little giggle. She realized she fell for the provocation and also lost the race. There wasn't much left to say. She gazed at the sky and smiled, acknowledging the healthy competition. Stepping into this area, she felt the cool air brush against her skin, like entering heaven after leaving behind hellish conditions. As her sweat evaporated, she sensed a refreshing feeling. Adjusting her hat, she readied herself for the upcoming assessment and headed towards the others to partake in a well-deserved meal after the challenging stat tests she had endured. After they finished eating, the second practical examinations began. In the examination center, a wooden club slammed into the ground, signaling the start. A lone fighter stood surrounded by goblins. The hunter held a sword and had already defeated one of them. One goblin roared loudly, its yellow eyes intense with fear. The other goblins laughed crazily. The roaring goblin wanted to attack but hesitated, scared. The ground was stained with the tar-like blood of a dead green goblin. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it enjoyable. If you want to see the next part of this video, please let me know by liking this video and subscribing to my channel.